All right, and it is noon. We will get the ball rolling to try and keep the schedule today. My name is Jasper Erickson. I'm the Client Services Manager for Score Main. I'm here today presenting logos from the ground up. Logo is an important part of any business's journey, and I hope to, clarify the process on it a little bit today. It's important, really, for establishing your brand identity and it'll really dictate what people think of your business. Next slide. We want to start by saying, please keep your microphones on mute unless you have a question, you can utilize the raise hand function. That's at the React window down at the bottom of your screen. You can put a question in the chat if you have one, and I'll try and address it as we go. But again, I will try and keep questions for the end. I do want to thank today our sponsor, the Maine Technology Institute. They're a big help. We love collaborating with them, and they sponsor a good majority of our workshops, and we wouldn't be here without them. So like I said, my name is Jasper Erickson. I am the Client Services Manager for Square Main. I'm also a freelance illustrator and graphic designer with a degree from the Savannah College of Art and Design. It's a great time, and I really hope to clarify any questions people may have on logos today. And if we could start, like I said before we're getting going, if you could put in the chat if you have any updates on where you're at in your logo journey, if you've either started one or don't have one at all, or if you don't quite like yours, be great and give me a few talking points later as we roll along. Linda says wants a new logo for a tech coach. Found a local person. That's great. That's a topic we will touch on, finding who should design your logo for you. There's a pretty wide world out there for logo design. And Vivian is starting a business and doesn't have a logo at all. I think that's probably where a good chunk of people will be because it's a daunting process for sure. And Michelle has one that they'd like to update. And John, how would I create a logo that for a business is hard to describe? I think we'll try and touch on that a little bit. Have some ideas for a logo starting your business and exploring logos and getting started with the business plan. Well, that's all great, everyone. I hope that we'll be able to touch a good variety of the logo journey here today. And so we'll start off by talking about what goes into a logo, the anatomy of a logo. There's really about three different parts, of the body of a logo. Starts off with the word mark, usually the name of your business. One of the things that's going to be most prevalent across all of the logos will be the name of the business. The other parts can get dropped off, but you almost always have to have the name of your business in your logo. An icon, a little graphic that is representative of your business. For here, an example was this company Green Banana that was made up. Just as an example here, they have a green banana, for example. And last but not least, the tagline, kind of a catchphrase for your business. This may come later and is probably the thing that's going to get dropped more often than your icon. Running down those three, an icon is a simplified representation of your business, usually something play on words from the name of your business. It's pretty hard to get your business off the ground and getting people to know your business from just an icon unless you're already huge. Mostly businesses represented simply by an icon are going to be the huge ones like Apple or Nike as example here. You can see that icon and just know that those are those businesses. Wordmark, however, is going to be the most searchable. It'll get your name out there. And, as said here, it's a distinct type-only treatment for the name of your business. Your business isn't just the icon, but it's having a memorable wordmark is very important. I think, Subway has a great example there by having a little bit of stylization to it. It makes it fun, makes it jump out at you, and it's a great example. Last but not least, again, the tagline. It is a catchphrase for your business that doesn't always have to stay exactly the same as it can change over time. We do have a little bit, a link that'll be included later once I send out the slides to everyone that can go, that'll go a little more into it. Um, but it is often the thing dropped most often when utilizing your logo across various mediums. Some examples there. McDonald's known for "I'm loving it." Dell, you rarely see their tagline. I have a Dell laptop myself, and it's not even on there. So um, it's just again a catchphrase that kind of speaks to your business. And as I said before, a wide variety of uses. Your logo will be spread across. Your logo goes on just so much more than your website. It can be on advertising, packaging, signage. It has to be usable across anything that's going to represent your business, your brand, your identity, both internally and externally. We here at Score used Chobani here as they had a great, very simple, it's just a word mark, but you can identify from their font what they're about. And it is a very spreadable, very multifaceted logo that appears great on all of their usage. Oop, hello. So when do I need a logo? We like to say that you need one as soon as possible. However, there's some things that go into getting your logo before you even get off the ground with it. Um, a big part of that is your value proposition and your business plan. And by having those, you then come up with the name for your business. Your name is representative of what you do as a business. You don't want to be, let's say, a car manufacturer and call yourself Sandwich Co. So, just a dumb example, but by having a name that represents what your business does, that's the first step in getting identification of your brand and marketing out there. Yeah, few examples here. Again, is it appropriate for industry? Is it different enough from your direct competition? Good thing to think about here is that, it sounds a little negative, but there's really not many new ideas under the sun. But however, looking into similar logos within your industry is a great way to start, and similar names within your industry is a great way to start, especially locally. You don't want to open up shop, let's say we're at Score here on 4th Street in Portland, and around the corner, someone else opens up, let's say uh, another mentoring service and goes with a similar name. Either they didn't do their research, or we have a little fight on our hands. So something to think about. You don't want to run into competition. You do want competition, but you don't want to step on the feet of your competition. Especially too if they have happened to trademark it, then you can really get into some legal hot water. And last but not least, your domain name. In this day and age, your website is really the home for your brand, your business, and it's pretty simple to find out if your domain name is taken. Most web hosts will have a search feature where you can put in the domain you're thinking of, and they'll tell you if it's taken or not. There's a lot of great ways to kind of get around that. If, say, you're going to be Cookie Co. Portland, Maine, but there's Cookie Co. Portland, Oregon. You could go cookieco.me, and that might differentiate you enough from the other one. And again, like I said before, your value proposition and identity of your business. This is a great thing that a Score mentor can help you with if you're not totally sure where to go with it. Can you answer these questions about your business? What do you do and how do you do it? What makes you stand out from the crowd? Who are your customers? That's one of the biggest things we see a lot at Score, is trying to help people find out who their customers are. What do you value the most, both in your personal life that ties into your business as well as for the business itself? And what's your personality? If you're going to run your bakery and you're a little more rock and roll, then say next to Score we have Yuri's Bakery, delicious croissants, but they're a little more clean, a little more high end looking. That's something to think about when it comes to the brand identity. And again, like I said before, research your competition. There's not many new ideas under the sun. You're going to be doing the same thing as someone else, but don't be too afraid to kind of look at what they're doing and see and get inspiration for your name, your branding, your logo from others because they tend to speak to what you do as a business. For example, here we have a couple different boxing gyms that all have a very black and white stamp blocky logo, whereas a bakery again will be a little softer, a little more rounded, some brighter colors versus black and white. Or for a painting company, you're going to probably have a few different colors on there versus just one or two. Yeah, and a tanning studio, those are all going to usually have the colors of the sun in them. So think about the product you're selling, think about the service you provide, and what colors go into that. And that is a topic we'll touch on a little bit more later. And so here's one that I definitely already saw a bunch in the chat. Who is going to design my logo? There's a really wide variety. It's a wide world. And I hope that we can address some of them here. To start, a branding agency. This is going to be the most expensive. However, you're going to have the most control other than doing it yourself. And you're going to come out with one of the best results. Some local ones we like to refer to are Might and Main and Pulp and Wire. They are in depth. They say you have lots of direct contact with the designers working on it. And they'll take you in, you get to sit in their cool office downtown and really go over what they're going to do for your brand and what your brand is. Again, though, this is going to be the most expensive, but you get what you pay for. They'll provide you with all sorts of things like a style guide, font guide, different file types, which is another topic we'll touch on in a little bit. All the things you'll need for this, a branding agency will provide you with. Next up, a freelance graphic designer. And I'm on the side. I'm not doing it a whole lot lately, but sites like Upwork or Fiverr are great to find places like this. Or if you happen to have connections locally that can refer you to one, they're going to be an individual rather than a team that will, work for you. It'll probably cost less. However, there'll be a few caveats to that, as with a branding agency, they will charge a flat rate or bigger fee that you have more control over the final product. Whereas a freelancer, you're probably going to have to pay a little extra if you need more revisions, if you need more time on it. You may also run into the fact that they, being a freelancer, have a life outside of this, maybe have another job where they're going to probably take longer for your logo and your branding compared to a branding agency that is their explicit job. That's all they do. They still create some great work. They still have all the tools at their disposal and will likely provide you with what you need. Again, though, there's just a few caveats to that. Again, get what you pay for, and this is probably the second best option. A third one that's fairly interesting is crowdsourcing. There's a couple sites as example here, 99 Designs and Design Crowd, where you can throw out what you're looking for in a logo on a site such as these, and some different people will put in a submission for it almost, and you get to choose between a few. However, this is going to cost, it's a sliding scale on sites like this. Say you're putting in $200 and people will put in a logo that they think is $200 to them. Where if you're paying only 50, it's going to go down, but you might still have a pretty wide variety of options here because it's going to a wider crowd rather than working with an individual. It's interesting. It may end up a little touch generic, as a lot of these people are probably going to be utilizing stock files, stock images that they have access to, and catering it to your brand. The fourth one, logo generator websites. We're not touching on AI yet. We will touch on that. This is things such as LogoJoy, Design Hill, or Squarespace's built-in one for your website. Squarespace has a fairly solid one, but again, it's mostly going to be stock images. Resources that are available to anyone that you fill in your information and you use pre-existing items to create your logo. It's fine. You can probably still get the files you need. However, there's gonna be some caveats to that as well. You might run into not being able to get a bigger file size or transparent one with some of these, or it's going to still lead to also possibly not fully speaking to your brand, possibly not fully speaking to what you want for your logo. And so Then we run into DIY. Everyone we're all here at SCORE. A lot of what we try to help with is the DIY. However, if you're branding your company, if you don't have the proper tools to do it, you might still run into some problems there. It's by not having something like Adobe Illustrator or Vector. I would say GIMP is a great tool that's free, but it does have a bit of a learning curve. There's some great YouTube videos on that. But overall, if you don't have the tools or the technology, you might want to think about possibly heading back up to Fiverr for someone who does. If you have the idea for it, that's great. Break out the pen and paper, break out your markers, start sketching, write down what you want. It's a great way to start. It's a great way to get your idea out there and then have someone clean it up. But if you have the training, if you have the tools, you have the technology, do it yourself, it's a great cost effective method. However, time is money as well. This may take longer and may take time away from running your business, from dealing with customers, dealing with clients, dealing with the business itself. So that's something to think about when doing your own logo as well. Last but not least, we have the worst ones. AI, controversial. As a graphic designer, illustrator, I hate it. I think it's great for iteration. It's great for type. It's great for content. It is horrible for a final graphic design. It's going to be iterative. It's going to be stolen from other people's artwork. Do not use it for your final product. However, you can use it for iteration and ideas. Use it for brainstorming. Anyone nowadays, as AI art and AI images are getting more and more prevalent, is probably going to tell that you've used AI. And it just kind of speaks to your business if you get caught using AI for your final product. Or if you have a friend or your cousin who happens to have a really good experience with Microsoft Paint or Word, not great. Again, might be great for an idea, get the idea out there, but you're probably not going to end up with the final thing you want representing your business. If that friend or cousin happens to be a trained graphic designer, that's great. If they have the tools and technology, that's awesome. If they don't, if they just are your friend who likes to draw, not the best for it, but not terrible. Again, it's a great idea stage, but not for the final product. But back to working with someone though, if you do hire a designer, it is a delicate balance between trusting their expertise, like I just said, and giving away your vision. You should listen to your designer because if you're not a designer yourself, they may have some feedback that you may not want to hear, but it will overall be best for your graphic, best for your icon. You should make more constructive criticism rather than just saying you don't like it. One of the things, as a graphic designer, freelance myself, I hear people just say I don't like it and then don't give any further information about why they don't like it, and so that leaves your designer in a really tough spot because they don't know where to go with that if you don't have specific constructive criticism for them. And if you So that's something to think about, being courteous and thinking about it with your designer. I do want to touch a little bit more on AI as it is a huge hot button topic right now. We have a couple of great workshops on it at SCORE, and I do think, again, it is really great for iteration, for ideas, but not for your final product. There's a few reasons for that. Lack of text and editing capabilities. Google just came out with an update to theirs that has good typography, but most of them is going to struggle with creating legible text or the text you actually want it to say. And even then, it's not going to put out a file that you can edit to what you want it to say. The other major one, if you eventually want to trademark your logo or brand, you can't trademark an AI image because it's built off of pre-existing images from people whose work was scraped by the AI software. It is purely iterative, it's non-original, and trademark currently does not consider AI images to be human works, so it does not get copyright and trademark protection. And another thing is that it's not going to usually export the files that you need, such as a vector file, which we'll touch on these file types later. Raster is a big, interesting word. If you're not sure what that means, it's an image that can't scale. Vectors can scale. We'll touch on it more. They're both different file types that you need in order to use your logo everywhere you're going to use it. And AI really can't put out those files that you want yet. Again, even if it eventually can, it's not going to, still likely have copyright protection or be exactly what you want it to be. And again, like I touched on a little bit earlier, it's going to be because of the way that AI art and images work. It's building it from existing artwork. It's looking at all these other ones and spitting out an image based off of other things. So it's not going to be unique. It's not going to be memorable. It's purely built on existing things. And overall, again, if now that it's even more prolific in the industry than ever, it is identifiable and it is going to speak to lack of creativity and in my opinion, kind of tackiness when it comes to using AI. Again, that's all my personal opinion on it. But again, on the other hand, it's great for iteration. It's great for ideas to bring to your final, designer or build off of it for your final product. And so we'll start really getting into the body of it. We'll start, kind of designing a logo here. The first step is really concepting. Think about logos that inspire you. Think about, drawing them out, really getting the idea out there first before just jumping into something. It's important to be involved with this process, whether or not you're either doing it yourself or you're hiring someone to do it. Again, it's your logo is the most important element of your company has to establish brand recognition, and it's important to be thoughtful and take your time with it. A great example here, find some hidden meaning. Do a little play on words with your logo, such as FedEx iconically has a little arrow between the E and X because it's moving your packages to and from places. Or Zippo with the flame on the eye, looking like one of their lighters. Just little touches like that. You don't have to have a huge flair, huge je ne sais quoi, as they say. It can be simple. It can be effective. And try to avoid cliches. Don't try to keep it simple. Again, there's being clever and there's being cliche. And we'll start running down on 1, 2, 3 of it with some color theory. My favorite topic when I was in school. No, I loved it, but either way, color is something that is iconic to a business, but you should really start simple, especially when trying to create a graphic that will stand out. By keeping it black and white to start, you create a graphic, striking image that will stand out and stand the test of time. By making it black and white to start, you can then edit it to, utilize color down the road. But there's some things to keep in mind as well when really starting the process, some things especially not to use as exampled on the left there. Using photography. Photography is non-scalable. It's not going to look good unless you have the biggest file size in the world. That banana in the top logo there is going to look horrible if you blow it up to a billboard. Don't use text effects like the wrinkles on the text or shading. Shading's good if you have, an existing image that's, say, in the chat there. Erica has a great one that is great for sponsorships and larger print. I do think it's pretty cool that it's great to have it out there, but for such things like merchandise, such things like your business card, the printing of that is just tough. It's not scalable, and it makes things complicated. And keeping it simple is one of the best ways to start making a great logo. Step 2, fonts. Fonts are another iconic part of any logo. And a few, examples here of the types of fonts you can go for. A serif will have a little more traditional, a little more eloquence to it. Sans serif, however, maybe a little more modern, maybe a tech company. Script could be playful or even more elegant than a serif. If serif is business, script is a wedding or a bakery. And there's just so many out there. There's so many fonts out there. There's hundreds upon thousands of fonts that I often will have a license you need to get for them. That's something to consider as well. If you use a free font that you don't have the license for, you could run into some legal trouble. You can get around this by either having a designer make you a font for it. That could cost some money. However, in my personal, life with this, handwriting is a great way to get around it. You could handwrite your thing and have a designer, vectorize that make that a graphic for you. Or a great example is Adobe fonts. If you have access to the Adobe Creative Library, Adobe fonts are all licensed for commercial use. I highly recommend, if you're going to be doing your logo yourself, getting an Adobe membership, at least for the stock and the font family. But again, keeping with the theme of starting simple, start with one for the body of your logo and maybe have a second font for your tagline. More than two gets overcomplicated and little all over the place. Two, great way, maybe, for example, here, sans serif for the body and then script for the tagline. Your font also talks about the attitude and values of your business. Again, a serif font reads more business, a sans serif maybe clean, modern, or there's some strong ones there that have, a little more oomph to them than a regular Helvetica would. Display fonts are usually fonts like example on the bottom that have some fun to them, that are going to be a little more personable, a little more speaking to yourself, but they could also detract from it if that's not what you're going for with your business. And some great examples here of businesses that use various fun or serious fonts. For example, Volvo and Sony want to say that they have the premier uh, you know, car or tech product. So they have the serif font that speaks to a seriousness, sans serif there with Facebook or Microsoft, or Google. It speaks to a modern mindset, a little more open. Script font, maybe your company does have some history, you're well established, or it's your handwriting, so you have your personal touch on the business itself. Or display, Lego's one of my favorite businesses out there, and I personally love their logo. Four colors maybe gets a bit much, but that curly font speaks to its blockiness for to almost make a pun there. Disney being having the iconic Will Eisner font, or Metallica, or bands in general, mostly go for something that speaks to the band. So again, your industry and customer base will really play into what font you should choose for your business. And yeah, John says, didn't Coca-Cola stop using its iconic script font? I think that there's certain places they do still use it. But yeah, if you're going and buying a Coke at the gas station nowadays, I think it is more of a blocky one. I agree that, having such an iconic font, logo, it's kind of dumb to abandon something so iconic. But being a company as old as they are, companies will rebrand across time, and it is a topic we'll touch on in a little bit. But when choosing a font, sometimes, as we say, sometimes bad fonts happen to good people. There's fonts like Comic Sans that have just become a meme, become a joke, and they're instantly recognizable. Unless you're a stand-up comedian, or maybe a bakery, or if you're using it potentially on a product, I highly recommend against using a font such as these. Papyrus iconically used to crash printers because it wouldn't work. I don't think we run into that problem anymore, but it's still become iconic for that reason. Pearls, that one again, could be fun, but being one that's built into your computer, it's recognizable. If you want something that's fun, do some digging, do some research, maybe sketch something out on your own rather than going with a font like this, unless you absolutely have to. And back to color, a little more color theory, because your colors will speak to your business just like your font will. Each one here, for example, blue, speaks to dependability, trust, stability, and strength. Funny, I will say I, found this graphic, so it's funny Skype is still in there as they're no longer around. But again, that they're also, well, I guess, and we'll move on from Skype because I disagree with that. But red, passion, powerful. That's a color that's used often. Multicolored, playfulness, openness, creativity, really think about what colors tie into what you want your business to stand for. Um, this really plays into too your value proposition and your business plan. Again, something a score mentor can help with if you're not already working with one. Um, and similar to fonts, pick one, maybe two, if you really can work with the rainbow one. If you really think it works, try it out, but keeping it simple, like most every other part here that I've been hammering in. Simple is effective. Keep it simple. Industries also have colors with them as well. Blue kind of speaks to a little more. Blue's pretty broad, but it speaks to a level of professionality, speaks to a level of seriousness, whereas red is going to be exciting, it's going to be bold, it's going to, say you're selling the big thing. But these are just kind of broad examples, as you can often have, a pretty, multiple colors, or say here at Score, we like this blue and green. However, we don't really fall within it. So choosing accent colors can kind of let you break out of these established norms for colors. Love your guys, everyone's examples they've been putting in the chat so far. Yeah, Michelle, that one, the nice thin type there looks very representative of Healing Company, and Trisha, that's a cool block type there as well. If anyone else is interested in throwing it in the chat, that's a great thing. And again, too, color speaks to your customers. There's some established norms with it that I think are getting bucked a little bit. But if you're selling, let's say, car parts, but you start painting them pink and purple, that may not be attracting the right crowd. Or if you are um, let's say, a life coach, but you're doing black and red, that might just not be the colors you're looking for. That'll speak to what the customers you're trying to reach. Play around with the colors that speak to you, but also speak to who you think your customer is. And again, that might get a little further than what we can touch on at Score rather than this workshop, but it's something to maybe bring up with your mentor as well. So a little example here to kind of recap what went wrong with this one. This is an example that we found that kind of ticks all the wrong boxes for what you could not really do for your logo. This logo is going to be really hard to read at any size smaller than this. It's not going to really be easily printable on merchandise. It's not going to look good up on a billboard um, because there's just too much going on. There's three or four different fonts, and no shade on them. I'm sure that I'm assuming radio station is a great radio station, but it's got too much going on, and I think the theme overall, if anyone can take away from it, keep it simple. And Lionel, while we've got a quick second here, my struggles have been to find a brand name that aligns the availability of the identical domain name. Crafting a logo becomes more complicated. That we can touch on that in a little bit. I think that there's probably some ways you can play around with the domain rather than the name itself. Like I mentioned before, such as using a .me or a .co domain rather than a .com. But there might be some ways to touch on that, and there might be some ways to touch on that with either a score mentor or a graphic designer that you may work with. So you've thought about all those things. You've thought about your customer. You thought about your value proposition. You've thought about what your logo means to your business. And are you ready to launch it? Are you ready to go? Before you go live, there's some tests you should do that I have already mentioned a little bit, but we should touch on them some more. Does it scale? Does the logo you made look good across a wide variety of places? It needs to look good on top of, a business card, as good on a business card as it does on a semi truck, if you're going to be using a semi truck. Granted, that's just a wide example, but say you have a storefront and you need to blow your logo up for that size. Does it look good there? Um, it does need to work on a multitude of different mediums, such as light and dark backgrounds, or in your storefront window where there's going to be a lot going on behind it. It should be legible. Um, Michelle Jackson says, "Do wish I known how many times I'd be saying my business name in the places it would be before filing paperwork." That's a great point. Keep it in mind that this is going to be everywhere and it needs to work everywhere, especially if you're going to run into merchandising. Um, does it work on light and dark backgrounds and photographs? There's a lot of things here that um, you know don't work when you have textures and images in it rather than a graphic icon and simple colors. It lets you utilize your by keeping it simple. It lets you utilize your logo and brand name in so many different places rather than on just a white background or just a black background, because it's not always going to just be on a black or white background. And even if you do really, color is imperative to your business. There still might be places where you have to keep it black or white. John Silverman raised a great point. For the visually impaired, the logo should be legible when the colors are reversed. That is an amazing point, especially because it, again, sticks to keeping it simple. It lets you utilize it everywhere, and that's the important part of it. And it needs to be, again, reproduced across different mediums. Screen printed on shirts or embroidered are one of the biggest examples I personally work with in my graphic design. I specialize in merchandise design myself and stuff like this, where having that, drop shadow, embossing, multiple colors, you start really running into problems when you're going to have merchandise made for your business if you are going to. Even if it comes down to a business card, the more colors you choose, the harder it is to print and the more expensive it is to print. Um, Especially, for example, on the middle top there are a goofy version of the example name and logo. That's an embroidery example, which you really lose a lot of detail by having to do 6 or 7 different stitches if you really want to have it embroidered. Or screen printing, again, you start to run into that. It's expensive. There's direct to garment printing now, which is another whole different ball of can of worms that I could get into, but that's not today's topic. Um, that do allow you to, but it still is hard to read. And keeping it legible, getting it out there, and letting people know, hey, I'm, for example, green banana. It You need everyone to be able to read it. And to have everyone be able to read it, we have to get into a little bit of technical jargon here. Computer nerd like me, I love this kind of thing. Need to get the right file types. This is something that if you're working with someone, they'll get for you, or if you're doing it yourself, if you're utilizing Adobe Illustrator or GIMP or whatever professional program you may have, you should be able to do it yourself. Um, a raster images is something like a JPEG or PNG. I highly recommend doing all of your work in PNGs because PNGs allow you to use transparency. If you don't have a transparent image, you're going to have that black or white background when you try and place it on other things. like on your website or on your Instagram or on even your Facebook, in general, web usage is going to be raster, and you should have that be able to be used across as many mediums as you need it. Um, Whereas a vector file is going to be used when you send something to the printer, because a vector technically is made of math. A vector is something that can scale from a quarter to the side of a building, because there's a computer algorithm that allows the graphic to expand as big as it can. You can use it on web. It's a little more limited on places you can use that, but it's great for logos of your website up on the top of your browser, like the tab icon or the logo on your website itself. Usually, by uploading it there, your web provider will end up converting it to a raster image, but it's still really easy to have your logo utilizable across a wide variety of places by having a vector available to you. And so another quick thing to touch on here, DPI. I can't tell you how many times, as someone who's laid out, products, that I've been sent a file that is not big enough to print. If you're having a product printed or even having your business card printed, you should really have your image file be 300 DPI, or pixels per inch, dots per inch. The dots of ink per square inch that a printer or screen to uses. For web, yeah, you can get away. A screen is usually 72 dots per inch, so it's not going to be too wild. However, if you're getting it printed on a t-shirt, if you're printing at that same screen resolution, it's going to look very blocky, very pixely. So keep that in mind. And that's something that a designer can do for you, or there's some great tutorials. John has a great point here as well. Is it correct that vector files can be easily rasterized, but if the original is a raster file, it may be difficult to vectorize? Yes, that is correct. Adobe Illustrator is getting there with automatically vectorizing raster files. However, you need to have it be simple. It's really hard for a painting to get vectorized. Whereas if you take a picture of just a black and white image, it can tend to do that, but it's still going to be touchy. It's almost, again, rides back into the AI world. And yeah, so it's tough, but it's something to think about. All right. And so then we get into the checklist again, something that you should keep in mind, and something that a um, a designer can get for you, or it's something that if you keep your notes, you can get that off of. If you're utilizing Illustrator, Photoshop, any of those programs, you're able to export these codes if this is something that you want to keep, a style guide. However, there's a few different things that go into this. Vector files should usually be set up in CMYK, as that is the format that a printer uses. Cyan, magenta, yellow, and K means black. The colors that printer uses, and either use vector format or a 300 DPI PNG. Whereas on web, you're totally fine keeping in red, green, blue. That's going to be a smaller file size and utilizable in a wide variety. You can use a JPEG. I prefer PNG myself, but that's just me. Your mileage may vary. Um, and by working with this, a designer can get you these different variations, such as different colorways or single color versions, or laying out different configurations. One thing I've done for Score here is a couple of different variations of our Score main logo, where we have the main tucked under Score or next to it, and that's exampled here as well as or just an icon. You don't necessarily have to have these, but it's fun to be able to spread it out across many different places. And by either doing this yourself or having the designer do it for you, It allows you to, keep a simple version of your logo that's utilizable in so many different places. And John is asking, if I pay a designer, should I insist that the original be a vector? You don't have to, but it's great, really great for posterity to have that available to you. And so one thing to think about too is get as many eyes on your logo as you can. Did you use spell check? Are there any accidental graphics such as a swastika or some genitals? Something that gets, you may not see it, but then you print it on the side of your building and everyone goes, whoa. You don't want that being your brand, being your business. There's a great link that, again, I'll be sending this slide deck out to everyone. There's a great link at the end that gets into this a little bit. And again, it's great to get more sets of eyes on your logo, as many as you can. Maybe not your mom, maybe not your partner, but maybe a score mentor or a wide variety of your customers to be, and your friends that can speak to you truthfully rather than just someone who's going to, it's not the thing to just get a hype man on. Have someone give you some serious critique on it before you go live with it. And last but not least, because this is what is going to represent you and your brand, do you love it? Don't just say yes. Especially if you're paying for it, don't just tell them you like it if you don't like it. Get know your worth, get your money's worth, or if you're doing it yourself, if you end up not liking it, yeah, time is money, but don't be afraid to scrap it and start and do something else. It really speaks to you, and don't have it be something you regret. Quick touch point here that we can kind of help with at SCORE. We have another workshop that's really great on this that dives way more into detail. I'll be sending out this recording as well, that the recording of that is on our YouTube channel. But should I trademark? You probably can't right now. There's a lot that goes into it. It costs a decent amount of money. And simply by going into business with your name and logo, you're already a little bit trademarked. You're already a little bit protected. There's common law and common use that um, that protects you from people stealing your stuff. AI is starting to kind of skate those lines, but you still have a case if you open up in Portland with, for my example, a skeleton guy on a motorcycle, and then someone opens up next door and they're a skeleton guy on a dog, on a horse or something. Um, there's things, there's laws already in place to protect you from that. But if you really want to get into it further, you can either talk with one of our SCORE mentors, like Alan Shaver, pictured here. He knows a lot about copyright, or talking with the copyright office up in Augusta or wherever your local copyright office is if you're not located here in Maine. A couple links here that are recordings of some trademark webinars, as well as ours, is on our YouTube channel that you'll receive a link to afterwards today. And so, like I said back then, a couple slides ago, if you do hate it, don't be afraid to do it again. Don't be afraid to rebrand. If you screw it up, many logos didn't start great either. Starbucks may have been around for a while, but if they put out that logo from the 70s today, there'd be public outcry, I bet. It's cool and hand drawn, but it doesn't scale and looks a little spooky. I like the spooky, but I know it's not for everyone. That's not anyone walking down the street that sees that might be a little put off. Rebranding is real. Don't be afraid if you're a few years into business, and you're already established, but you start thinking your brand's no longer what represents you. Don't be afraid to take another crack at it. If your customer base has changed, if your brand identity has changed, but your logo doesn't represent that, um, feel free to take a crack at it, but don't do it too often. I would say if you start out, stay with that branding logo for a little while before you start wanting to change it. And, you know, your logo is only a facet of your business. Don't be afraid to put it on the back burner. Get your value proposition, your business plan situated first. Know what you're about and let the logo follow. Your business is always number one, and that's one of the things we like to say here at SCORE. We're here for the life of your business, and if you need any advice on that, feel free to come ask us. Here's a little recap, a checklist that when you receive this, you could print out and possibly use. You should know yourself, know what you stand for, know that what your local groups are doing, what your local businesses are like, but also what are other people doing in your industry across the world even. Do your research. Be thoughtful. Again, really think about what speaks to you and give your logo the care and thought that it deserves. If you're too busy to do it right, and you're just going to have to do it again down the line, consider hiring a pro. By spending a little more upfront, you get something that you're going to stick with probably longer than if you did it yourself or utilized stock images. Stock images are a great way to, if you're just trying to get out there, amazing. Get the business first, let the logo follow again. Keep it simple. I think that's my biggest takeaway. I want everyone to keep in their brain. Keep it simple. Don't over design what you want to speak to you. There's, obviously a billion caveats to that, but I think that keeping it simple is the most important. By keeping it simple, you can test for versatility. By testing for versatility, you can use it across many different mediums and formats. And by keeping it versatile and simple, it makes your life easy rather than having to constantly be working on this one little thing of your business where you could be working on the million other fires that you have going on with your business. Uh, Again, get some more eyes on it and get a few unbiased opinions that can speak to you critically rather than someone who's going to just say, "Oh my God, I love it." I love my mom, but she just tells me she loves everything I do. So I have some friends from art school that I still send some of my stuff to get some actual critique. And last but not least, get your final files. Again, if you're DIY or doing it on Canva or various, providers, make sure you have your files available and in the right formats and layouts. Here's that reading I was talking about. Not going to touch on this too much. You'll have this PowerPoint. You can peruse and click on these links. Here's some options as well for local branding agencies. Again, Pulp and Wire is a great one. Not mentioned here, Hugh McCormick is another great one. Freelance designers, Fiverr, it's great. We do have a few local designers that aren't listed here. I can include in our follow-up information as well. Crowdsourcing websites are really interesting. Logo generators that are stock images and DIY when you have the right software. Again, try not to DIY unless you have the absolute, you know, confidence in yourself and you have the right means to export it the way you need it to be. And this was added by someone else, but just say no to cousin Amy, just your friend or cousin who's coming in with Microsoft Word or Paint and saying, "I'll do it for you for free. I want to help you." You get what you paid for, and it just usually ends up bad unless your cousin Amy is a professional graphic designer. So anyway, that's just a little joke thrown in by someone else here, but I think it does speak to the ethos of designing your logo. Either way, again, my name is Jasper Erickson. I want to thank again our sponsor, the Maine Technology Institute. We got some time for questions. I know I see a few questions here in the chat already. I know I addressed a few as we went on because timing allowed, but Jen's wondering what a reasonable price for a logo by a individual graphic designer is. Um, with individuals, freelancers like myself, 50 to 75 an hour is going to probably be the standard for something that's going to get you something worthwhile. You can go a little cheaper on Fiverr or Upwork, but then it's going to start going into stock images and them just cranking it up to get it to you rather than speaking to your ideas, your ethos, your brand itself. By paying less, you do unfortunately, again, you get what you paid for, and that's a common phrase, and I think it applies well here. Scroll through Upwork. There's millions of people on it. There's so many options that can get you what you want for reasonable prices that will still speak to what you are stand for your business. Vivian, unfortunately, I'm not as super familiar with 99 Design, but what you should put in for your crowdfunding type of logo is be pretty specific with it. Speak to your business, speak to what you want, and again, money comes into play there because by putting it, it's almost a bidding war when you submit on sites like 99 Design. By having a bit of a higher bid, someone will take it more seriously, and but only pay what you are really willing to pay. Don't overpay for it because there's obviously you're running a business. There's so much more that goes into your finances than your logo. And well, a logo again is the thing that represents your business. Don't let it detract from anything else that's going on. Sandy says thank you. Do we have any other questions while we're online still today? Lionel, can a single logo be used for a company projecting, offering services, and selling products? Yeah, I mean, you start to run into like a life coach or a consultant. You, I would keep it simple. Maybe not have an icon. Have your, if it's going to be like your name or an acronym, have it be a distinctive font. Um, and again, it goes back into, scrolling through fonts, scrolling through colors, and speaking to what services and products you're offering and selling and what your customer base is going to be. Another one, well, I've got everyone on the line here, dafont.com is another great one that has some commercially available fonts. Not every font on there is going to be commercially available, but you can buy a license for those that don't already come with commercial licensing on them. And yeah, so I would keep it simple. Again, the thing I keep saying, unless like you have a great graphic. I've got my water bottle here, local brewery, Modest Man, and they have this stylized MM. Um, there's it's simple, it's effective. Um, I think that's again just the real take home point today. Simple and effective. Um, don't over design. Anyone else while we're online here today? Well, what's Score's logo supposed to represent? Can everyone see my mouse? So this little swoop here, I was going through our style guidance, our helping hand. It's kind of a hand reaching out to offer help here, and it's very stylized, abstract. But by having a little icon, it pops out and is usable in infinite amount of other places. We have it printed huge on the side of the building here in Portland, as well as I'm sure at other local Score offices. We use it on posters. We use it on business cards. We have shirts. By keeping it a simple thing like this, rather than a full hand, something that represents a hand rather than a full hand, it lets it scale. And again, simple is effective. I do want to thank everyone putting in their examples in the chat here. It's been some great stuff to look at. And if anyone else has any other questions, feel free to queue them up. I'll start doing my little closing blurb here. If you're not familiar with SCORE, if this is your first time visiting one of our workshops, we are a nonprofit partner of the Small Business Administration. We help businesses from pre-start to exit, from starting your business plan or selling your business. You can find a mentor for free at score.org. Karen coming in with one. Beyond hourly rate for branding agency or individual graphic designers, is there a way to estimate an approximate number of hours establishing a logo might take? It's a great question. Really going to depend. It's unfortunate there's not a standard for it. I like doing what I do when I do graphic design, but I'm a slower worker than other people. And that runs into two. If you start off your logo, if you're going with a freelancer, um, you'll have your set rate. There may be extra if you have to do an edit or a change or anything like that. That may run into paying extra hours. Whereas at a branding agency, you get a little bit more control over changing your logo, making changes to it. There really isn't a standard hourly rate. There's a kind of an average if you scroll through Upwork or Fiverr or talk to local agencies. Um, and that comes with experience, that comes with clientele. Someone like Hugh McCormick, who I mentioned, who's won like nationwide awards, is going to cost more than an individual freelancer or some of the other branding agencies in town. Whereas doing it yourself, again, is going to be your time rather than your money. So it's really comes down to how complicated your logo is going to be, and if you're going to work with someone, providing them with ideas and having a really clear idea for it to get with. If you need help even coming up with the idea, that's something that they'd probably be happy to work with you as well. Just keep in mind that might start to take more time as you go down the iterative process with them. But hey, I do want to just add too. Again, we were recording today, and the recording will be sent out to everyone who's registered once we wrap up today. Once it's available and posted on our YouTube, and a copy of these slides will be sent out as well. Again, if you don't already have a SCORE mentor, it's completely free, no cost, and completely confidential. You find one for free at score.org. Enter your zip code and a little bit of information about your business. I want to thank everyone for attending today. If we have no other questions, and I hope everyone has a great rest of your day.